Welcome to this week's Eternal Monday, where Team Rocket's Wheezing takes on Liability Weezing from EX Deoxys. Today's game comes from the afterparty of the third and final Eternal Summer Tournament that took place during July of 2025 at Dragon's Lair at Alamo Ranch, here in San Antonio, Texas. If you're new here, you might be wondering what the Eternal format even is. In short, it's the unlimited format with a ban list. This means that deck builders can venture all the way back to the very start of the Pokemon trading card game and make use of cards that aren't legal in the official standard or even the expanded format. This large card pool creates an exciting and fun, rich deck building experience that can be endlessly enjoyable for all types of players of the Pokemon trading card game. From the most skilled to the newest of new, from the biggest tryhard to the kitchen table champion, the Eternal format has something for everyone. Unsure where to get started? I've got a getting started video on this very YouTube channel that is a great crash course for how to get into the format. Additionally, there is now a page on justinbasil.com that features a wide variety of decks for the Eternal format. Both this page and the getting started video are linked in this video's description. Now, on to today's game. All right, we have our players starting here with our Team Rocket's Wheezing player on the right and our Liability Weezing player on the left. Our Liability Weezing player is going first here, starting out with Buddy Buddy Poffin, and already has Manaphy in the start and Doodle Prism on the bench, but we're going to grab a couple things from the deck to get us moving. Looks like they're eyeing up some coughing, and a spin rack. I'm going to shuffle the deck. This deck is a bit of an older style for Liability Weezing. It is still running the Ariados from Ancient Origins, which most of the newer versions of the deck just don't run. We did see a level ball and that level ball got a coughing. So we do have a decent setup already from our Liability Weezing player here. Our Team Rocket's Wheezing player getting started here, grabbing Arven. I have to imagine they're probably going for a Poffin also. They are. Poffin and Floatstone both coming out to play. Poffin gonna drop looks like a Ditto Prism Star and another Team Rocket's Coughing to get them set up. Unfortunately, no ball toy or any sort of draw just yet, but they're trying what they can. Do have that luxury ball though. Choosing to go for... Oh, actually, that other other coughing rather is not a Team Rocket's Coughing. That is just a regular coughing. That second one that just came down right now is in fact the second to Team Rocket's Coughing. Very interesting. Guess they're going to just bank on that Ditto as a potential draw option if they do in fact run Claydol here. And it's a pass back to the Liability player. Top decking a Protection Cube. Have a regular coughing. Oh, it's a regular Wheezing. It's a Liability Weezing in hand there. They do have a Secret Box. It's going to be a big cost to use, dropping 2 Protection Cubes and another card there to search your deck for one of each type of trainer card. If they're grabbing Eco Arm, makes sense to shuffle those cubes back in after having to discard them. They're going to need some sort of supporter, most likely a Shuffle Draw or something like, basically something like In or Ino to get their hands refreshed because they've just nuked everything they had in their hand. They are grabbing a Protection Cube. So Eco Arm, Protection Cube. It's like a Turffield Stadium. And In. So they're getting a couple cards here. Choosing to throw down the Turffield, attach the Protection Cube to the bench Wheezing. Going to shuffle their hand back into their deck with In. Hit their opponent as well. Give their opponent a brand new hand. Give themselves a brand new hand of 6 cards here. They have neither player has taken prizes just yet, so both players will benefit from 6 fresh cards. You do have to wonder. They're going to need some sort of retreat option here, getting that Manaphy out. And they also are going to need an energy, it looks like, on that Wheezing. I don't think they have a Wheezing just yet. Or I don't have energy on the Wheezing just yet. Do have 2 more Wheezings that came down. Also, Skuntank G will get them the poison they need to knock out the opponent's active. Oh, okay. Well, they have... Alright, so that's good. That means they can get the poison anyway. They still can't get the Manaphy out of the active, and they don't appear to have any way to retreat it to, or an energy for that matter, on the Wheezing. Choosing instead to just poison both active Pokemon, so it'll poison the artist ability will poison any Pokemon that is not grass type in the active spot. We in fact see a coughing on a regular coughing that's exactly identical to the Liability Weezing's player's coughing, coming down on the Team Rocket side here. And we have Team Rocket's Wheezing coming in the active spot with its Everybody Explode Now attack. Gonna be doing some big damage. Against an opponent that really doesn't need the big damage. It's fun to see a deck that can do massive damage, but ultimately its opponent is like small and squishy. But yeah, it's able to do the big boom. So Everybody Explode Now does 40 times damage. That's 40 damage for each Pokemon in play that has coughing or wheezing in its name. So Team Rocket's Wheezing counts, Koga's Wheezing counts, Galarian Wheezing counts, all the different coughings, different wheezings, they all count toward this damage. So you want to crank it up as fast as you can to get big damage against most of your opponents, or in this case, just a few of them will do the trick. We have taken a prize card now that Manaphy has gone down. Wheezing in the active spot. Just missing an energy. We have Protection Cube and that coughing below it. Those are those two cards there. The Buddy Buddy Poffin searching out the deck for a couple more cards. It looks like a coughing and potentially another Spinarak. Mime coming down instead. So coughing and Mr. Mime. I would have preferred to see another Spinarak or at least a Skuntank, but it is what it is. Versus Seeker going to find that. Ooh, no, maybe not. Oh, it's going to find Teammates. Teammates is an amazing card. So Teammates allows you, if your opponent has given you the unfortunate situation to knock your stuff out in the previous turn, you get to just search your deck for 2 cards and throw them into your hand. It's like a double computer search if one of your Pokemon was knocked out in the previous turn, which is the case for our Wheezing player here. So they're just going to get the energy they need. Here's a Jet Energy. It forces itself into the active spot and is going to knock out the opponent's Team Rocket's Wheezing because of the poison that was applied last turn. So Liability in this case is going to take the Pokemon down to just 10 HP. Poison will finish off the damage. And because of Protection Cube, the Liability Weezing does not also take that same damage. So good for the Wheezing player here, the Liability Weezing player. They're both Wheezing players. Fun how that works in this particular battle. We have the Wheezing here. I believe this is from Unbroken Bonds. It's the Detention Gas Wheezing. Yes, Detention Gas. As long as this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, put 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's basic Pokemon between turns. And then its attack, Splattering Sludge, does 40 damage, and it does 20 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon that has any damage counters on it. And then, of course, you're not applying weakness resistance for bench Pokemon. You would notice that there was only 1 energy attached there, but it is a valid attachment because of the Galarian Weezing on the bench, doubling the energy. However, that the Wheezing, Detention Gas Wheezing did not last very long because Liability Weezing is already causing a problem. Here we have a gust up on the I'm going to butcher that name every time. Ariados getting knocked out, or rather getting gusted up, so that it's a much bigger issue to try to get a knockout here on the Team Rocket's Wheezing. I'm going to do a research discard. Don't like that. Discarding Hypnotoxic Laser. They should have just played it, even if it just to leave the effect on there for later. Ugh, that feels bad. But we do have the Team Rocket's Wheezing going down anyway. All right, we have yet another Liability really nuking this board on the Team Rocket side here. Ooh, and we have an instant screw you. Okay, so if you've not been part of the game for very long, you may not be familiar with this particular Wheezing. This is Galarian Weezing from Rebel Clash. Rebel Clash Galarian Weezing has the ability Neutralizing Gas. As long as this Pokemon's in the active spot, your opponent's Pokemon in play have no abilities except for Neutralizing Gas. So basically, it'll shut off the ability of Mr. Spider-Man himself, making it so that the Liability Weezing player cannot get the poison off, except there's still a way to do it, and that was Hypnotoxic Laser. Hypnotoxic Laser coming out to have some fun here and still getting that poison onto the Galarian Weezing so that it can be knocked out by Liability, bringing our Liability Weezing player down to just 1 prize card, and our Team Rockets player here really scrambling to try to find some sort of answer here. Bit of a rough situation. This Liability Weezing player has had a very consistent, rather smooth operation here. Marnie, the Disruptor of Choice, throwing the opponent's hand to the bottom of the deck and getting them just 4 cards. We do see an Evolution Incense and another Neutralizing Gas, hoping once again to slow things down. It may be a moment before an answer can be resolved this time, because as I recall, there are just 2 copies of Hypnotoxic Laser in this deck, and now both of them have hit the discard pile. The first one off of that Juniper, and the other one this last turn. So now our Liability Weezing player does not have that as an option. At this point, they really, really do need the Skuntank in play, but they can't get it in play because their bench, they think, is full, but they aren't realizing that that's just not the case. At this point, what they really do need is a Stadium card, because Skuntank G, once they get that into play, doesn't need their Stadium card to take effect. They'll use that Poke Power and poison the opponent's Pokemon. So once they realize they can grab a Stadium and Skuntank, they will be well on their way to victory. They're choosing to retreat the Wheezing and put the Mr. Mime in the active spot. Unfortunately for the player here, I don't think this really matters very much. The ability is off already, and they just not attack into it if they don't want to. And they probably won't. They're going to Prime Catcher anyway, so they're Prime Catchering up that Wheezing, putting it back in the active spot, forcing it to not hide. Problem is, taking any sort of knockout for our Team Rocket's Wheezing player will open up a victory avenue for, or will open up the obviousness, I should say, of the victory avenue for our Liability Weezing player. I think our Liability Weezing player might be figuring out right now. They are looking at their discard pile. They do see that the Skuntank G is in the discard pile, so now that the Wheezing has been knocked out, if they can get some sort of recovery card, they can quickly get what they need to set everything into motion. All right, there's the Rescue Stretcher. Rescue Stretcher can find that Skuntank. Okay. Choosing to shuffle all 3 of them back into the deck, all 3 of those cards back into the deck instead of just bringing Skuntank directly into play. Kind of an interesting choice there. I would have rather just seen it come right back into play. Now we just need a Stadium card coming down. We do have Rescue Energy going on to the Wheezing. Transparent Walls exists. Transparent Walls, if you're not familiar, is basically like a 1-turn bench barrier for your side. They can play it, but in this particular matchup, it doesn't seem to do very much. There's going to be some decent damage, though, still on the Galarian Wheezing. And that Liability Weezing is going to be knocked out. The damage is a little on the slow side here, but it's coming. There are other avenues of attack they can choose. The Liability Weezing player can choose to attack with the Coughing. They can actually attack with some of their basics and do a little bit of damage to take chip damage onto the active Galarian Wheezing without necessarily needing to set up Liability. Right now, the ability on the Spider is still off, so that's not an option for setting up poison for Liability. Do you see a Level Ball? Looking at the Coughing, seeing the 10 damage it does. And just looking at their various options. They are now looking at Skuntank G. Skuntank G does have an attack too. It has Smoke Screen, which will do 20 damage. You do need 2 energy on it in order for it to do that damage, but it is a possibility. Making choices by looking at their hand here. You can tell it's a bit of a tough call when they're going back and forth, really trying to think it out. In this case, I do think that the Liability Weezing player pretty much has game in hand, like pretty much is aware that they can get game fairly easily at this point. They're just choosing to really think things through to make sure they don't mess things up. So we do see Transparent Walls come down as just in case, also to clear a card out of the hand. We also see Verse Seeker, Guzma. We're going to pull up that Skuntank, pull it to the active spot, and then a pass. At this point, I believe we have an energy already on the Skuntank, so we just need an energy, and that Guzma Hollow is going to be the ticket. They're going to discard the 2 cards, going to find the energy, and I believe that's all she wrote. There is a Recycle Energy in deck, so Recycle Energy can be attached to the Skuntank. Stadium card goes down, and then we'll have Poison too. So we have Poison from the Skuntank, we have the damage from the Smoke Screen, and that's going to be all she wrote. And you see the other player there pointing out that you could also attack with the Coughing, but you evolved everything, so it's whatever. That was a fun little back and forth. kind of really having to go for some alternate options there with regards to attacking, using Smokescreen to finish the game off. But you know what? It did in fact work. Up first in our deck profiles is going to be a look at this version of Liability Weezing. This is a fairly established archetype in the Eternal format. It's been around for quite a long time at this point. The Ariados, I'm going to get it right, the Ariados in this deck, it's a bit of an anachronism almost. It's been out of the list for quite a while. This player chose to put it back in to use it for this particular build. Personally, I think I would have rather saved the 4 deck spaces for a second copy of Skuntank G. This deck, you'll note, was only running the one, which is why when they were trying to put one into play, they had to find Rescue Stretcher to get to it, which is very unfortunate. I think I would have rather seen that. I would have rather seen an extra stadium card too. Another Artisan would have been very good. Even another Turfield would have been very helpful. An additional copy of Hypnotoxic Laser. There are a lot of things that those 4 slots could have gone to that would have probably helped more. Additionally, I don't know how useful the Jirachi actually is, like, at all. And then having both Manaphy and Mr. Mime feels a bit excessive. All the same, this is the list they chose to use, and they did actually make it to the finals in this particular tournament, although they had an extremely awful auto loss in the finals. They were up against the Festival Grounds Hydrapple deck, and pretty much everything about that deck says no to this one, whether that's the Festival Grounds Stadium itself shutting off all the poison effects, or the double attack on the Diplins just slicing right through these Wheezings like tissue paper. Unfortunately, really, really bad matchup for Wheezing, but that's not the only deck in this particular video. Now, finally, we look at the Team Rocket's Wheezing deck. This is, if I'm not mistaken, a first draft by the player who brought it. All the same, it mostly functioned throughout the tournament. It did struggle a little bit in the match up against the Liability Weezing, but of course, Liability Weezing is much more of a known quantity in this format and has had a lot of deck builders picking their brains over how best to build it. But that said, it did work here. We have the 4 Team Rockets Wheezing and the 4 Team Rockets Coughing. We have the Galarian Wheezing, which was very much an MVP, according to the player who piloted this during the tournament. They did mention that they'd rather just have 4 Ascension Coughing instead of the split between the one from Team Rocket's Return and Ascension. Detention Gas Wheezing also there for some extra damage. Did a Prism Star, as always, an MVP. That Surprise Time Machine, pretty good. Can't use it really on the Ditto to switch Wheezings, but every other Coughing can be switched into a corresponding Wheezing. So Coughing to Galarian Wheezing or regular Wheezing, and Team Rockets Wheezing into Team Rockets Wheezing. Basically, you're more or less using it to switch Coughings to either of the available Wheezings or Galarian Wheezing. Galarian Wheezing, really, really good in both varieties here. Both the one that shuts off abilities and the energy doubler from Chilling Rain. Skyfield, of course, you want to get as many of them in play as possible so that you're able to do the bigger damage against bigger opponents. Bigger opponents, not so much of a threat in this particular matchup, but all the same, you do have Skyfield to make that happen. And Team Rocket's Proton, of course, is there to make sure you get a bunch of Team Rocket's Coughing out, even under item lock. All the same, this deck, it definitely functions. A Cessation Crystal or 2, of course, always goes a very long way. If I'm not mistaken, this player also did wish they had a second Cessation Crystal, or at least some way to recover and get back out the Cessation Crystals, as they were quite potent, especially when paired up with Neutralizing Gas Wheezing from Rebel Clash. Anyway, that is all for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. I'll see you again in the next video.